Hi, Evolvers. I'm so excited to be here, sending greetings to all our amazing mentors and mentees. Apparently, this is Leadership Week. On Monday, Oyinye Ede, our amazing convener and mentor, was able to take us through understanding leadership and introduction. Thank you, Oyinye, for sharing your very inspiring story. Thank you for able to pull out some qualities of leadership, ability to influence, great change, persevere, vision, solve problems. I also love the engagement, but look forward to even much more engagement when you watch the video and then we interact, ask questions. I also want to learn from you. We all are leaders, and I'm super excited for this session. Lest I forget, my name is Margaret Bolaji Adebola, and today we're looking at personal mastery in leadership. It's a continuation to what we had on Monday, and this most of the slides that you will be seeing have been adapted from the John Hopkins Center for Communications program in the US. I was opportune to be there last month for a leadership course. Okay, let's get down to leadership. Usually when we talk about leaders, people want to look at the top, want to look in front, trying to look for who the leader is. But the truth is, looking at this organogram, we have leaders at different levels. Forgive me, you might not be able to read exactly what's inside it, but the most important word there is the leader. And you see the arrow pointing to the person at the top as the leader. But interestingly, there are leaders at all levels, and the most crucial may be those at the lowest level. A very quick story I was told, I don't know if it was fabricated, a messenger, or maybe some people call it cleaners, who happens to enter his boss's office trying to clear the table, and then he found a paper where they wrote the names of people that were already earmarked for disengagement. They were going to be sacked from that institution. And this cleaner found his name on the list. And you know what he did? He cancelled his name, cleared his name, and replaced it with the boss's name. Okay, so that's not a good influence, negative, but the bosses came back, did not look through, enveloped, packaged the letter with the names and send it to the higher authority. And he got back a letter telling him that he was also being disengaged. What happened? The cleaner, the messenger at that point, who is also a leader, was able to use his influence. Now you can say that is negatively, but that is just to bring to bear that we all are leaders at different stages, different spaces that we find ourselves. Our session objectives are majorly three. We want to see how we're able to appreciate personal mastery as a foundation of good leadership. Also, the concept of easy to do, difficult, impossible, and beyond imagination. Lastly, we'll be looking at the concept of coping, management, and leadership. Now, when talking about personal mastery, something you have to know as a leader, which is very important, is that you need to be yourself. Yes, you can improve. You should improve, actually, be the better version of yourself, but it should be yourself. So most times I've seen people say, oh, Margaret, you do amazingly well. You need to clone yourself. You need to, as much as that sounds like a sweet word, at some point I was tempted to believe that. But the truth is, I don't want to replicate Margaret's. Rather, I want to be able to mentor others to be all that they were created to be a better version of themselves. And the truth is, if we look at life that way, then it helps us to even compete less. And when I mean compete less, I mean negative, trying to be like some other persons. I read a quote some years back. It said, I'm not in competition with others, rather I am in competition with myself to be a better me. So one very key important factor, important quality of a leader is to be yourself. And you know, in being yourself, something is very key: integrity. Integrity. Yes, you can, maybe the synonym for it is honesty, but integrity, it's actually gotten from the word integral, which means one. And when we say one, it means what is inside is what is outside. You're not pretending. Some people are called hypocrite because then they say something else, but they mean something else, or they are two faces. They have two faces, but integrity means one. What is inside is what is outside. And the truth is, and this is a question to you, if you meet the real you, would you find a stranger or a friend? Some people find themselves and they're so scared, like, is this me? And that's because you've probably been living a lie. But if you meet yourself today as a leader, would you find a stranger or a friend? This amazing picture, I love, not just because I love buff girls. I have to admit very well that I love Madame Teresa. But this picture shows great care. It shows love, pure love. You have all it takes to be a great leader. Just be yourself. And before you can be yourself, there's a crucial question you have to ask yourself. Who are you? Who am I? And if it's as a group, who are we? We communicate and lead best when we are just being ourselves. So I know there's so much pressure on leaders. People want them to act certain ways and all of that. And then you want to improve, you want to do a whole lot. But please don't lose yourself while trying to lead others. You communicate best and lead at your peak best when you're just being yourself. And always remember that it begins with you. So if something is wrong with you, then change won't happen. To change others, we may have to change ourselves first. And I would say we should change ourselves first. A story of a man was told. He woke up one morning and said, yay, I'm so excited, I'm passionate, I have energy, I want to change the universe. And then he tried, but couldn't succeed. And said, oh, okay, yes, I'm passionate, I'm good, and this, I want to change my country. He tried, could not succeed. And said, oh, I think I should change my community. He tried and tried, did not succeed. And then he said, yes, my family, after all, I'm the father of the house. I can make my son sit down here, do this, change people. And that in itself too, also was not easy to do. But he said, I will change myself. And that was where the story began. That was where the success came up. And by changing himself, others just needed to watch and follow. And it was amazing how much he was able to do even in the universe. Now, it's also important to know, as part of personal mastery, that leaders do not enjoy the comfort of the high ground. We love to flex. Yes, it's good to take care of yourself. I'm sure along the line we'll get probably some sessions that talks about self-care and all of that. But the truth is, you have to be willing to go down to the grassroots. You have to be willing to love the swarm. You have to be able to relate with the people, with your followers. You need to understand, put yourself in their shoes. And it's easy for people to say this always, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. But I've seen people trying to put themselves in someone else's shoes without removing their own shoes. So you're not going down, bending low to remove your shoe so that you can fit well another person's shoe. This is very important. Also, importantly, as part of personal mastery, is that you need to grow down so that you can grow up. And the truth is, the foundation matters, and that's where integrity comes. That's where the character is. For every learning organization, for every successes, the person has been able to really, especially sustainable changes. A leader is able to grow down, is able to build his character, has integrity. All of these are very important. And that's likened to the strength of a boxer's legs, which is more important than the strength of their hands. So if you see their legs usually. So when I heard this quote, I said, oh, no wonder you see all of those muscles and all of that. And I think that has been established by research or by people who are very familiar with boxers, that the strength of their legs are more important than the strength of their hands. A monk, actually, who has other monks with him, was asked, how do you know that those monks are spiritual? He said, it's so simple. I just sit down and watch how they sweep the ground. So sweeping the ground is a measure of spirituality. No wonder the true saying that cleanliness is next to godliness. A very quick story. I remember in my university, while doing my first degree, I came back from lectures, tired, needed to use the bathroom, the toilet, and then there was this very long queue at the to get water. It was just maybe 2 or 3 taps that had running water in the hostel, and that was away from my block. So it meant that I was going to take a long time to be able to get water and then go use in the toilet. Luckily, I got small portion of water, and then I went to use the toilet, and then by the time I flushed, it didn't all go well. I mean, there was still the toilet wasn't as clean as I met it. Actually, it wasn't even that clean when I met it, but it was in my nature to always make it even better than I meet it usually. So I needed more water to make it that way. But I was also running late for a fellowship at the chapel. So I was caught in between going on time for my fellowship or staying back to join the queue of several other students to get water and tidy up the toilet. So I fought it for a while and decided to wait. And then I waited, joined the queue, got the water, and went to flush the toilet well, made it clean. And then I went for fellowship. And on getting to fellowship, the person who was facilitating the Bible study said, oh, we're looking at righteousness. And simply put, righteousness means doing the right thing. And it went further to say, doing the right thing means going to the bedroom and ensuring it's neat. And I was like, Margaret, this is you he's talking about. I'm glad I did that. So most times we look for those big things, and the truth is the way you do anything is how you will do everything. So those little things are very important. Another key thing to look at or question to ask ourselves, even as leaders going through this personal mastery journey, is there only one way to see things? Apparently, no. You look at this, maybe a crown, maybe whatever, but this is what it is. And the more you keep zooming out, the more you see other things. And that's why it's important how we listen as leaders. For some people, starting from the bottom, they don't listen at all. All they want to do is to talk. Or even when people are talking to them, they're doing other things. They're not just listening. For others, they are pretending to listen. So you know how people try to say, I'm multitasking, or someone, just keep talking, I'm listening, and then you're looking at something else, but then you're not listening. For some, they do selective listening, and selective listening means selecting what you want to hear. So you don't hear all of the story. You probably have a mental model. You already have a filter, and you choose what to listen to and what not to listen to. Another very good one is attentive listening. So this time around, you give your attention, you even nod, use the gesture. But importantly, as a leader, if you remember the picture of Mother Teresa I showed earlier, it's empathetic listening. And with empathetic listening, it means you're not just listening to what is being said, you also listen to what is not being said. You're listening with your eyes. Okay, so that didn't make sense. You're supposed to be listening with your ears. But you're listening with every part of you. You're able to put yourself in the person's situation. That's a quality of a good leader. Just an example to portray a empathetic listening or the different ways we listen. So a group of researchers went to a community and they asked women, what is the biggest problem you have in this community? And the women said alcoholism of the husband. So when they said that, the researcher took it up and then tried to have a graphic, present it graphically. And this was what they presented: a man drunk and then just sleep outside the house, and that is it. But you know what the women said after they saw this picture? Yeah. Also, character. Of course, we've talked about integrity, but just to reaffirm that character and competence are very important for leaders and even for followers as well. But it's important that our integrity, again, is essential. Below the surface is the root system out of which everything else grows. So that's the foundation. The next one is the intent. So that's more visible. It emerges from, of course, the beneath the surface. That's where it comes from. And that's where you're looking at the motives, the agenda, and the behavior. Also, capability, and this is very much related to competence, your ability, your talent, the skills, the knowledge, the capacity you produce. And lastly, of course, part of competence is that one that gives you the results. And the results are usually the fruits. So these ones are tangible, the one people see, as opposed to the character, which is what is below the surface. So with the result, you have your track record, your performance, getting right things done, and all of that. But remember that with leadership, character and competence are very key. And why are those very key? Looking at character and competence metrics, if you have if you're competent, but you lack character, then you become a dangerous leader. Because then you have the skills, but then you're not rooted. You become a dangerous leader. Again, if you lack character as well as competence, then you're actually not a leader, you're a disqualified leader. If you have character but lack competence, but with character, you're willing to learn, you're willing to get all that you need, it means that your development is limited, but if you give time to learning, if you're open to it, you will become a better leader, and that means that you're an emerging leader. But where exactly do we want to be? It's where we have the sustainable transformation, and that's where you have both character and competence, and with that you become an impactful leader. Yes, the concept of easy to do, looks difficult, that's impossible, beyond imagination. Yes, it's important to know that as leaders, or better still, my question will be, where do leaders operate? While growing up, I as a child, I started working at 8 months, quite early, but not too different from what other kids do. But I just did not talk. My mom was so scared that at some point she would call me, go get me this thing. When I return, she would be like, oh, she's not deaf, even if she's dumb. It was such a struggle for me, and after 2 years, close to 3 years rather, I started to I uttered a word called my elder sister's name, and I became scared. I went back to my shell. But over time, I knew I needed to talk, but then I started stammering. So it was okay for me to just talk in-house. When we go to school, I would rather not talk. So that was easy to do for me, at least because I was stammering and I was afraid people would make jest for me. It was just easy for me to talk at home. That wasn't easy because initially I wasn't even talking, and here I was talking, stammering, but at home. That was easy to do. Looks difficult. I got to a point in school where I started talking. And in class, when they ask question, because I got a lot of push from my mom, she'll say, you can do it. I started talking. That was something that looked difficult, there's a saying that goes, the impossible are often the untried. So I started talking. Then, after my first degree at the university, I went to the radio station. I wanted to just submit my poem so that they can air it, but then they insisted that I should do it myself, did the recording, and at some point, I started going on air for a live program and I started having conversation on radio. That was impossible, but I made it possible. People did not, in fact, my mom was so shocked, like, really? So you could actually become a radio presenter? And it didn't stop at that. I got an invite to give a talk on behalf of other young people across the globe at a family planning conference in Bali, Indonesia. And they had close to 5,000 people. And I gave a speech that was beyond imagination. So where do leaders operate? Yes, you can say beyond imagination. That's where it's impossible, where it looks difficult or easy to do. But I think that leaders operate at all of those levels. And it's also good to know that outside your comfort zone is where the magic happens. So do you want to make magic happen? Then you have to operate from outside your comfort zone. You have to, we talk about thinking outside the box, but I wonder why we should even get the box. Throw the box away. There are no boxes at all. Just go ahead and do what you need to do outside your comfort zone. Okay. So very quickly, I would run through coping, management, and leadership. So coping, management, and leadership, it just helps you know as a leader how you should respond to events, to changes, and challenges as well. So for coping, it's usually reactive, problem solving, and that's why you see the firefighter when there is fire. You're trying to do things, but when coping is dominant as a leader, you're most times confused. You waste time, you waste resources. There's also panic reaction because you didn't plan for it. And this is what it looks like. Coping is dominance. You can see the red, which is coping, and then management is little, and then leadership is also little. But with management, the focus is on controlling event through a blueprint. So you have your do's and don'ts, you have a document, and then there are processes, just like you have at the airport when you want to check in, and a whole lot of that. But again, with management, if it's too dominant, here is the problem. The rules become more complex and rigid, and then people work like machine, like you have to do this thing at this time, and then problems grow because rigid rules dampen creativity. So people are unable to use that creativity to do things. When I was employed to do the job I currently do with the John Hopkins Center for Communications program in Nigeria, one of the things I was told is, we didn't employ you to tell you what to do, but we employ you so you can tell us what to do. That sounds interesting for me. That's creativity. But with management, it's important, but if it's too dominant, there will be a problem. And that's why you can see the yellow of that's the sign for management being too dominant. But with leadership, it's about nurturing changes. It's about nurturing change. John Cotter said, setting the direction of that change is fundamental to leadership. Now, leadership and management skills. When you're looking at leadership, majorly, you are sharpening personal mastery, you are aligning people, resources, and practice, inspiring people with shared vision. So in my organization, we know our core values is passion, integrity, resourcefulness, caring, and everyone try to align with it and do great jobs. You also nurture values, you enable others to act, which is very interesting. Leadership and management are two distinct and complementary systems of action. We need both of them. But again, with leadership, when it's very strong, which is good, it makes you creative, it makes people see the organization as a living organization. You can change things that you want to do. You can do a whole lot, and that's really, really important. Also, it cultivates change towards a shared vision through nurturing of values and relationship. So they let you do what is expected. But when leadership is dominant, there's still some problems because you're changing every day and there will be drastic change and there are backlash to changes. There will be confusion and people want to make things happen always. So there will also be frustration, tension, and sadly is that there will be burnout because people are constantly changing things. People are constantly changing things. So the good balance is that we have leadership, management complementing each other, and a little of coping. So progress comes when good leadership is supported by good management and a little coping. Remember, coping means solving problems just as they arrive. Management, you have to maintain standard. Leadership, you nurture change, which is very so. These three together, especially with a little of coping, but then the same amount of management and leadership, just makes sense for leadership. Now, believe you can make a difference and you will. But again, the question is, how can you make a difference if you think you can't? And lastly, I want to say, lead by example. Thank you so very much for your time. Look forward to seeing you soon. They said the problem is not when he is sleeping, it is when he wakes up. So probably when he wakes up and he's still staggering, it causes some problems. That is what the problem is, not when he is sleeping. So this again emphasizes empathetic listening as a leader.